Ethan Cole was known as the quietest cowboy in the entire county. He worked from sunrise to sunset on his small Wyoming ranch, hardly spoke more than a few words at a time, kept to himself unless someone absolutely needed his help. People respected him because he was honest and hardworking, but they also teased him for being too serious. They often said Ethan lived more with his horses and cattle than with people. He didn't mind the jokes, because he knew he wasn't good at crowds, jokes, or loud places. He liked peace. He liked routine. That was enough for him. One cool evening, his friends convinced him to come to the annual rodeo celebration. It was one of the few social events in town, and everyone attended. The music was loud, the laughter louder, and the dusty air smelled like grilled meat and fresh hay. Ethan stood near the barn wall like a quiet shadow, while his friends enjoyed the lively atmosphere. His oldest friend, Mark Turner, slapped him on the shoulder and laughed. "Come on, Ethan. If you stand there like a fence post all night, people will think you're part of the wall." Ethan gave a half smile. That was the most he ever did at gatherings. "I'm here, aren't I?" He replied. "That doesn't count," Mark said. "Come sit at the card table. One game. Just one. No excuses." Ethan didn't enjoy gambling, but his friends were stubborn, and saying no 10 times didn't work. He finally pulled out a chair. The other cowboys around the table cheered as if someone had won a prize. Ethan folded his arms. One game only. They knew he meant it. The men played a simple card game that required luck more than skill. Ethan was calm, careful, and observant. He had always been good at reading hands and people. That's why he never lost. And tonight, he didn't plan to lose either. As the game went on, his friends joked more loudly. The bets became sillier as the night grew later. First it was chores, then a box of cigars, then a month of cleaning stables. Nobody took the bets seriously. It was all for humor. Ethan kept winning, and the men kept groaning. Then Mark, who had clearly enjoyed too much excitement and maybe too many drinks, grinned wickedly. "All right, let's make this fun. One final bet. If Ethan loses this round," he paused dramatically, "he must accept the marriage proposal that my uncle arranged for his niece." The table erupted in laughter. Ethan stared at Mark. "What are you talking about?" "What proposal?" Mark waved his hand. "Relax. My uncle has been trying to find a good man for Maya. She deserves someone honest." "And you, well," he smirked. "You're honest, but you're also single, stubborn, and impossible to match with anyone. Maybe this is the only way to get you married." The group roared. Ethan didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. "I'm not marrying someone because of a card game," Mark shrugged. "Then don't lose." For a moment, Ethan wanted to stand up and walk away. But leaving would make him look scared in front of everyone, and he didn't want people thinking he couldn't handle a simple game. Plus, he trusted his skills. Losing wasn't something he expected. "Fine," Ethan said. "Deal the cards." The table leaned forward. The energy shifted. Even those who had been half asleep were now watching closely. The cards were dealt. Ethan picked up his hand and studied it carefully. It wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible either. He had won with worse hands before. He stayed calm. But tonight, luck had other plans. As the moves continued, the other players played boldly, and the final moment arrived. Ethan placed his last card down with a confident expression. He thought he had it, but the man across the table, Tom, slowly revealed his final card with a grin. Tom. Won. The table exploded with cheers, shouts, laughter, and slaps on Ethan's back. Mark jumped up and raised Ethan's hand like he had won a trophy. "Ladies and gentlemen, the cowboy has lost, and his fate is marriage." Ethan should have laughed along. He should have waved it off as a silly joke. But instead he felt a strange heaviness in his chest. He had never broken a promise, even a foolish one. He didn't like making commitments he couldn't keep. "You all know I don't gamble," said quietly. "That's why this is funny," Mark replied. "Relax, it's just a joke. But hey, you should still go meet her tomorrow. Maya isn't angry. She'll laugh about it too." Ethan didn't say anything. He rode home alone that night. The cold wind hitting his face as his horse trotted through the dark path. The stars were bright, and the moon cast a gentle glow over the land, but Ethan's heart felt uneasy. Marriage had never been in his plans. He had always imagined spending his life working the ranch alone. It was simpler that way. Fewer expectations. Fewer chances to disappoint someone. But now, there's Maya Turner, the woman behind the joke. He remembered hearing her name a few times around town. She had moved in 2 years earlier to help her uncle after her aunt passed away. People spoke about her with respect. They said she was gentle, hardworking, and smart. They also said the town didn't always treat her fairly because she was different background. Different appearance, different way of speaking. She was called a black beauty by some of the men. But Ethan didn't like that phrase. It sounded like they were describing a horse, not a person. He preferred real names, real respect. Still, he knew nothing about her except the stories. He didn't know her voice, her smile, her dreams, or her thoughts. He didn't even know if she would want to meet him. He entered his empty ranch house, lit a small lamp, and sat on the edge of his bed. The silence felt louder than usual. He tried to sleep, but his mind wouldn't rest. He kept thinking about the card game, the laughter, the bet he had lost. The next morning he woke up before dawn, as he always did. He fed the horses, checked the fences, and repaired a broken tool handle. But his mind kept drifting back to the same thought: he had lost the game, and a promise was a promise. Even if it was made in foolishness, after struggling with himself for hours, he finally cleaned up, saddled his horse again, and rode toward the Turner farm. He didn't know what he would say. He didn't know how she would react. He only knew he needed to face the situation honestly. The Turner farm sat at the edge of town. He saw her before he even reached the gate. Maya was standing near the barn, brushing a mare with slow, gentle strokes. She wore simple clothes, her hair tied back neatly. The sunlight touched her skin, giving it a warm glow. She looked peaceful, like someone who belonged there. Ethan stopped a good distance away. He didn't want to startle her. She noticed him first. She turned, her eyes calm and steady. She didn't look angry. She didn't look confused. She simply looked curious. "You must be Ethan," she said softly, as if she had been expecting him. Her voice surprised him. It was warm, low, and soothing. "Yes," he replied. I need to explain something." She smiled slightly. "I already heard. Mark told my uncle this morning. The whole town probably knows by now. He wished the earth would open and swallow him." "I'm sorry," he said. "It was a stupid bet. I don't want you to think I agreed to something like that out of disrespect." Maya put down the brush, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked closer. She didn't rush. She didn't judge him with her eyes. She simply listened. "I'm not upset," she said. "People make silly bets all the time. But marriage, that is not something people should decide as a game." "I agree," Ethan replied. "And I don't expect anything from you. I only came to explain. I didn't want you to hear it from gossip." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you for being honest. Most people would hide." Ethan felt the tension in his shoulders ease just a bit. They talked for a while about the bet, about how it started, about how uncomfortable he felt. Maya listened quietly, her expression full of understanding rather than anger. At one point she laughed softly. "You must think I'm embarrassed. I think you're handling this better than I am," Ethan admitted. She smiled again, and something gentle entered her eyes. "I don't want a man who is forced to be with me. But I do respect a man who keeps his word." Ethan was silent. Her words touched something deep inside him. For the first time, he thought maybe the bet wasn't the worst thing that had happened. Maybe it was the beginning of something unexpected. As he rode home later, he felt different, lighter, calmer, and strangely hopeful. He didn't know why, but he knew one thing clearly. Maya Turner was nothing like he expected, and this story wasn't over. After Ethan left the Turner farm that day, he couldn't stop thinking about Maya, her calm voice, her gentle eyes. The way she listened without judgment, all of it, stayed with him long after he reached his ranch. He wasn't used to thinking about people. Most women in town barely looked at him, and he never tried to impress anyone. He didn't know how. But something about Maya felt different. He didn't feel nervous around her. He felt steady, as if she already understood him more than others ever had. The next morning, he found himself pausing during chores, staring at the road that led to the Turner place. He told himself he was just being polite, that he should apologize again or help with something to fix the mess his friends caused. But deep down, he knew the truth. He wanted to see her again. He finished his work early, changed into a clean shirt, and rode toward her farm. He didn't bring flowers or gifts. That wasn't his style. Simply brought his honest presence. When he arrived, Maya was carrying a bucket of feed toward the chicken coop. She noticed him, and instead of surprise, she gave him a soft, welcoming smile. "You came back," she said. "I thought I should help with something," he answered, trying not to sound awkward. "You work hard. Your uncle works hard. I have time today." Maya studied him for a moment. "Are you helping because of the bet, or because you want to?" That question tied Ethan's tongue for a moment. He finally said, "Because I want to." Maya's smile deepened, gentle and warm. "Then thank you." She handed him another bucket. They worked side by side, feeding chickens, cleaning the barn area, checking fences. At first, they didn't talk much, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. Maya's presence felt like quiet music, soft, steady, comforting. When they took a break, they sat on a wooden bench near the barn. Maya wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. "You're quieter than most cowboys," she said with a playful tone. "I talk when it matters," Ethan replied. "People say I'm too serious." "There's nothing wrong with being serious," Maya said. "Some people laugh too much and mean nothing they say. You may speak less, but your words feel honest." Ethan didn't know how to respond. Compliments always made him feel shy, but this one warmed him more than the sunlight. They talked for nearly an hour. Maya told him she grew up in a big city where people hurried everywhere but rarely stopped to appreciate small things. She moved to help her uncle, and the quiet countryside felt like a fresh breath after years of noise. Ethan told her about his ranch, his horses, and how he built everything with his own hands. He explained how his parents passed away when he was young, leaving him the land. He worked alone because he didn't trust many people and didn't want to be a burden to anyone. "You're not a burden," Maya said softly. "You're strong. You carry things by yourself. That's rare." Ethan looked away, embarrassed by how easily her words touched him. Weeks passed. Visiting Maya became part of his routine. He didn't go every day, but often enough that her uncle started greeting him with a knowing smile. Ethan would help repair tools, lift hay bales, or fix a fence. Sometimes he just sat with her under the shade of a tree while she talked about life, books, or dreams. She spoke with warmth, and he listened with quiet attention. The town noticed. People at the general store whispered when they saw Ethan buying extra flour or fresh fruit before visiting her. Some teased him kindly. Others were surprised that the usually lonely cowboy was spending time with such a lively young woman. But no one was cruel. They simply observed the unexpected connection forming. Maya, on the other hand, didn't let gossip bother her. She wasn't someone who lived for others' opinions. She carried herself with calm dignity, and Ethan admired that deeply. He liked that she didn't pretend to be someone else. She was herself, strong, kind, thoughtful, and quietly brave. One afternoon, after a long day, Ethan helped her clean the barn. They worked shoulder to shoulder. The scent of hay filled the air, and beams of sunlight slipped through the cracks in the wooden walls. At one moment, Maya reached for a rake, and her hand accidentally brushed his. They both paused. Ethan felt something warm spread through him, but he quickly stepped back to give her space. Maya saw the shy reaction, and instead of teasing him, she gave him a gentle smile. "You're very respectful," she said softly. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Ethan replied. "You don't," she answered. "Not even a little." For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other in the quiet, golden light of the barn. It wasn't a dramatic moment, but a real one, simple, honest, and full of quiet understanding. Later, they sat outside again, watching the evening sky turn orange and pink. Maya hugged her knees close, looking thoughtful. "Ethan," she said, "about the marriage bet, how do you feel now?" He took a deep breath. "I felt trapped at first, like the decision was made for me. But meeting you changed that. How so? She asked. You're different, he said, searching for words. Not because of how you look, but because of who you are. You listen. You speak kindly. You work hard. You don't judge people. I thought the bet ruined everything, but now, he looked at the fields stretching out beyond the farm. I think maybe it brought me to someone I wouldn't have met otherwise. Maya's eyes softened, and she looked down with a shy smile. It's kind of you to say. It's the truth, Ethan replied. Her voice was quiet when she spoke again. I don't want you to feel forced. No, I don't want to be married because of a game. I know, Ethan said. If anything ever happens, it won't be because of a bet. The wind rustled through the grass. A warm silence settled between them. Ethan walked her back to the porch, and before he left, she placed her hand on his arm gently. Thank you for today, she said. Thank you for letting me help, he replied. Those small words carried more weight than either of them admitted. As weeks turned to months, their bond slowly deepened. They learned each other's habits. Maya discovered Ethan liked black coffee, but hated sugar. Ethan discovered Maya loved singing softly while cleaning the kitchen. They worked together, laughed a little, and shared peaceful moments that made both of them feel less alone. One late afternoon, it began to rain. Maya ran out to save the laundry, and Ethan helped her pull the sheets from the clothesline before the storm hit. They were both soaked by the time they finished. They stood on the porch, dripping with water, laughing like children. It was a rare moment seeing Ethan laugh openly. You should laugh more, Maya said. It suits you. Ethan looked at her, rain dripping from his hair, his heart strangely full. Maybe I just needed the right reason. They looked at each other with quiet affection. Neither could deny any more. Later, when Ethan rode home in the soft rain, he felt something growing inside him, something warm, something hopeful, something he hadn't felt in years. The connection between them was no longer a small spark. It was turning into something strong, something real. Their friendship was becoming the foundation of something deeper. The bet no longer mattered. The town's whispers no longer mattered. What mattered was simple. Ethan enjoyed being near her. Maya felt safe with him. They understood each other without needing many words. Something meaningful had begun, and they both knew it. As the months passed, Ethan and Maya's bond grew stronger in a quiet, natural way. No one pushed them together. No one forced decisions. They simply kept finding reasons to see each other, reasons that felt honest and right. Ethan found himself waking earlier than usual, just so he could finish his ranch tasks in time to visit her. Maya found herself setting aside extra bread or saving a story to tell him later, because she knew he would stop by. Their friendship settled into something steady. Something warm, something that felt like it belonged to them alone. But even though their connection deepened, the idea of marriage, real marriage still, hung in the air like an unfinished sentence. The bet had started everything, but now the choice had to come from their hearts, not from old jokes made at a card table. One crisp morning, Maya invited Ethan to help her uncle repair the back barn roof. The sun was bright, the sky was clear, and the air smelled of pine trees carried by the breeze. Ethan climbed the ladder with ease, using his strong hands to lift old boards and hammer new ones into place. Maya worked from below, handing up tools and pieces of wood. They joked lightly as they worked. Even her uncle, a quiet man like Ethan, noticed how naturally they worked together at one point. While Ethan was fixing a stubborn corner of the roof, Maya called up to him, "Be careful. It looks shaky there." Ethan smiled down at her. "Don't worry. I've fixed worse." But as he shifted his weight, the old wood suddenly gave way under his boot. Maya gasped. Ethan slipped for a moment, his arms swinging out to catch balance. The board cracked loudly, and for that second, Maya's face turned pale with fear. Ethan managed to grab a sturdy beam and steady himself. "I'm all right," he called, calming her. "Just old wood, nothing else." Maya placed a hand over her heart and let out a long breath. "You scared me." Ethan climbed down slowly. When his boots touched the ground, Maya walked up to him without thinking. She reached out and touched his arm as if making sure he was really safe. "You shouldn't take chances like that," she said softly. "I'm fine, Maya," he said, but his voice carried a gentle warmth. For a moment, They simply stood close, feeling the weight of what almost happened. It wasn't the fall that frightened Maya, it was what she might have lost. And Ethan, seeing the worry in her eyes, realized how important he had become to her. Her uncle watched them for a moment, then walked away, giving them quiet space. He knew when something private needed room to grow later that afternoon. After the roof was finished, Maya made fresh lemonade for them. They sat beside the barn, the golden sunlight turning the fields warm and peaceful. Maya swirled the drink in her cup thoughtfully. "Ethan," she said, "what do you want for your future?" The question surprised him. "What do you mean? What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? 10 years? What kind of home? What kind of days?" She wasn't asking out of pressure. She asked gently, as if she genuinely wanted to understand his deepest hopes. Ethan took a moment to think. "I want peace," he said. "I want to wake up every day and feel like I'm building something. A home that stays. A life that matters. I'm not one for big dreams. I just want something steady." Maya nodded slowly. "And do you want someone with you? Or do you like being alone?" Ethan looked at her, really looked. "I used to think being alone was easier, but now I think peace feels different when someone shares it with you." Her eyes softened, and she looked away shyly. There was a long, comfortable silence between them. The next few weeks were filled with small moments that quietly pulled them closer. Ethan helped Maya's uncle bring in the last harvest of the season. Maya visited Ethan's ranch for the first time, admiring the land he worked so hard to keep alive. She walked through his fields with slow steps, touching blades of tall grass with her fingertips. "This place feels peaceful," she said. "It keeps me grounded," Ethan replied. They fed his horses together, brushing their coats while the animals snorted softly. Maya's laughter echoed in the stable as one playful horse nudged her shoulder. "He likes you," Ethan said. "Animals know good hearts," Maya replied. Looking at him with meaning, Ethan felt heat rise in his face. She had a way of saying simple things that felt bigger than the words themselves. One afternoon, the town held a small autumn market where farmers sold pumpkins, handmade crafts, and apple desserts. Ethan didn't plan to go, but Maya insisted he come with her. She walked beside him wearing a dark blue dress that moved softly in the breeze. Many people turned their heads to look at her not out of judgment, but admiration. She carried a natural beauty, a quiet confidence that made her stand out. Ethan walked close, a protective instinct rising naturally without him even noticing. At one booth, a woman selling quilts smiled warmly at them. "You to make a fine pair," she said. "It's nice seeing companionship in this town. We need more of that," Maya blushed. Ethan cleared his throat but didn't deny it. They continued walking, and the comment lingered between them, settling deep in the unspoken space. Their hearts were slowly filling at the end of the market. They found a quiet bench under a maple tree. Leaves were falling gently around them, bright orange and red. Maya held a small basket of apples she had bought earlier. "Ethan," she said softly, "can I ask you something important? Of course, do you still think about that bet?" He looked at the ground. "Less and less. It feels like it happened years ago." Maya nodded. "Good, because I don't want to be part of a joke. And I don't want your future to be tied to something forced." He turned toward her. "None of this feels forced anymore, Maya. Everything that's happened between us, it feels real." She studied his face, searching for any hesitation. But his eyes held steady. "And you?" He asked, "What do you feel?" Maya looked away and then back at him, gathering quiet courage. "I feel safe with you. I feel respected. I feel seen. That's rare. You treat me with calmness and care. I didn't expect any of this, but I'm glad it happened." Ethan felt his chest tighten not with fear, but with something warm and deep. The sky slowly shifted into soft evening light. Children ran past them laughing, and vendors began packing up. But Ethan and Maya stayed seated, wrapped in their own world. Finally, Ethan stood. He took a slow breath. "There's something I need to ask you soon. Not today, but soon. Because I want to do it right." Maya understood immediately. She didn't rush him. She didn't ask for more. She simply gave him a warm smile and said, "I'll be ready when you are." That night, Ethan walked home feeling a new kind of strength in his heart. For the first time, the future didn't feel empty or uncertain. It felt bright the next days Ethan prepared. Not with fancy words or complicated plans. He simply looked for the right moment, the moment when his heart felt steady enough to speak. One late afternoon, after helping Maya and her uncle finish storing winter supplies, Ethan asked Maya to walk with him. They followed a quiet path behind the farm, where tall cottonwood trees lined the horizon. The sky was filled with gentle shades of gold. They walked slowly, side by side, until they reached a small hill overlooking the fields. Ethan stopped. So did Maya. He turned to her. His voice was calm, strong, honest. "Maya, I want you in my life. Not because of a bet, not because people talk, but because you bring peace to my days, and because every time I leave, I'm already thinking about coming back." Maya's breath caught quietly. "I know I'm not the smoothest man," he continued. "I'm not good with words. But I know what my heart wants. I want a home with someone who understands me, and I want that someone to be you." Maya's eyes slowly filled with emotion, not sadness, not surprise, but gentle joy. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "Ethan, I feel the same. I've been waiting for you to say this. Not because I needed it, but because I hoped you would." Ethan felt a calm wave wash over him. The kind of calm that came only when something true was spoken. He reached for her hand carefully. Respectfully, and she placed her fingers in his without hesitation. They stood together in the warm light. Two souls finally meeting in a place that felt safe, honest, and full of promise. The marriage that once started as a silly joke had now become a choice, made with open hearts. And though they had not yet spoken vows, something between them had already changed. They knew what came next. Ethan had never been a man of big speeches or loud promises, but after the day he confessed his feelings to Maya on the hill, something inside him changed. He felt lighter, as if a heavy door had finally opened and let sunlight in. Maya felt the same warmth. She walked back to the farm that evening with her heartbeat steady and full, knowing something important had settled into place between them. The next morning, Ethan woke before dawn, as always, but his routine felt different. He found himself carefully choosing a clean shirt, brushing the dust from his boots, and even checking his reflection in the small mirror by the window. He didn't know exactly what he wanted to say when he saw Maya again, but he knew the time had come to take the next step. He rode toward the Turner farm with a calm heart. Maya was outside sweeping the porch, her hair tied back, her face glowing softly in the morning light. When she saw him, her smile spread slowly, naturally, like it belonged only to him. Ethan didn't need to speak right away. She walked up to him, close enough that the warmth between them felt like a soft blanket. "You came early today," she said. "I wanted to see you," Ethan replied simply. Maya's uncle stepped out of the house just then, and when he saw Ethan, he nodded knowingly. He wasn't a man of many words either, but he had watched the bond grow day by day, and he appreciated the quiet strength in Ethan, something rare and important. For a man who would share life with his niece, Ethan asked Maya if she would walk with him. She agreed without hesitation. They walked across the fields in silence at first, their steps slow and comfortable. The sky above was wide and bright, dotted with soft white clouds drifting lazily toward the mountains. Ethan stopped near the fence line where wildflowers grew. He looked at Maya with steady eyes. "I want to ask you something important." Maya turned to him fully, her hands folded gently in front of her. Her heart beat faster, not out of fear, but out of deep, peaceful hope. Ethan took a slow breath. "I want to build a life with you, a real one. A life with respect, understanding, and honesty. I want us to work side by side, laugh together, support each other. I don't know fancy words, but I know this: my days feel better when you're in them. My home feels warmer when you visit. My future feels brighter when I think of you." He paused, searching her face. She was listening with full attention, her eyes soft. "I don't want our story to start with a bet," he continued. "I want it to start with choice. With my choice? So, Maya Turner. Will you marry me? Because I want you. Not because of the past, but because of who you are? Maya closed her eyes for a moment as emotion swelled quietly inside her. The wind moved gently around them, carrying the scent of wildflowers. When she opened her eyes, they were warm and bright. Yes, Ethan, she whispered. I will marry you. And not because you ask with big words, but because your heart speaks with truth. I choose you too. Ethan let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For the first time in years, he felt complete. He reached for her hand, and she gave it to him easily, their fingers fitting together like pieces that finally found their place. When they returned to the farm, Maya's uncle nodded with quiet approval. There were no dramatic reactions, no big celebrations, just simple joy, the kind that grows deep roots. The marriage was small, just like both of them preferred. They chose a place under the tall cottonwood tree near Ethan's ranch, the same spot where he often rested after long days. The tree had thick branches that swayed gently, offering shade and comfort. Maya wore a simple white dress her aunt had once owned, and it fit her beautifully. Ethan wore his best shirt and freshly cleaned boots. Friends from town arrived with warm smiles and small homemade gift pies. Fresh bread, quilts. People whispered softly about how unexpectedly perfect the two looked together, not because of appearance, but because of the peaceful way they stood near each other. As if their hearts breathed in the same rhythm, when Ethan took Maya's hands in his, he spoke in the same quiet tone that always held truth. I promise to be steady with you, to stand beside you, to work for what we build, to keep your heart safe. Maya replied with equally simple honesty. I promise to walk with you through every season, to share peace with you, to make our home warm with care. Their vows weren't long, but they held more meaning than any long speech could. After the ceremony, the small group celebrated with food and music. Someone played a soft tune on a guitar, and Maya took Ethan's hand, pulling him gently to dance. At first, he stepped awkwardly. He wasn't much of a dancer, but Maya guided him with patience. Soon, they moved together in quiet harmony, swaying slowly while the sun dipped low behind the hills. Ethan felt something unfamiliar yet comforting settle in his chest, a deep sense of belonging life. After the wedding didn't become perfect overnight, but it became real, full, and shared. Ethan and Maya built their home carefully, step by step. Maya planted a small garden behind the house, and Ethan built a sturdy fence around it to keep animals away. She turned a corner of the house into a warm reading space with a rocking chair and a handmade lamp. Ethan added hooks for her aprons, shelves for her spices, and a special clay cup he bought from the autumn market because she once said she liked its color. Every morning, they shared quiet coffee before starting work. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they just sat together in silence, enjoying the peaceful rhythm of their life. Maya loved feeding the horses with him, brushing their coats, and learning their habits. Ethan loved watching her with the animals, her gentle hands, her soothing voice, her natural patience. People in town slowly stopped whispering about them. They started admiring them instead. Maya became known for her kindness and her skill with herbs and healing teas. Ethan became known not just as a quiet cowboy, but as a devoted husband who worked hard to build a strong, united home. Sometimes, when the day ended and the sky glowed orange, Maya would stand on the porch and watch Ethan finish his last chore. He would look up and smile softly, the kind of smile he only showed her. She would walk toward him, slip her hand through his arm, and they would walk back to the house together, in those small moments. Both understood something important. They had become each other's peace. Many nights, they sat outside under the cottonwood tree, where they had spoken their vows. Maya would rest her head on Ethan's shoulder while he wrapped his arm gently around her. They talked about the future children someday, perhaps expanding the ranch, growing their garden, helping neighbors, growing old together with laughter and quietness. One evening, Maya said softly, "It's strange how life works." A joke made by others turned into something stronger than we expected. Ethan nodded. Sometimes good things find us in ways we don't expect. She looked up at him with warm eyes. "Do you ever regret losing that bet?" Ethan smiled, a soft, deep smile that reached his eyes. "It wasn't losing. It was the luckiest moment of my life." Maya held his hand tighter, understanding the full truth of his words. Their life wasn't built on excitement or loud noise. It was built on steady days, soft moments, gentle words, and shared dreams. It was built on trust, on kindness, on the choice they made together. The cowboy who once lived alone found not just a partner, but a warm, bright soul who turned his house into a home. And the woman who once felt out of place in a small town found a man whose quiet love made her feel more valued than anything she had ever known in the end. Ethan didn't lose a bet. He found the wife he always wanted, someone who matched his heart, his pace, and his dreams. And together, they wrote a simple but beautiful life that felt true every single day.